This is a money-making machine off the backs of women who often find themselves in very difficult circumstances. People who feel that they have no other way to make a living.
2 illegal massage parlors in Center Reach now shuttered. Authorities busting up what the district attorney calls a very, very secretive operation where sex acts were traded for cash. Authorities say the money was then laundered. The alleged head of the operation, Jianjin Yu. Yu is one of 4 facing charges.
We often see folks, prostitutes or sex workers, arrested for what they're doing. This operation was different. We went after the leadership, and we took out the leadership. They would coordinate getting the women to the massage parlors. They would use a large SUV to transport the women from residences to the massage parlors.
And District Attorney Timothy Sini says the men who patronized the parlors would be instructed to show up at one of the 2 locations, both located on Middle Country Road in Center Reach. In court, the prosecutor said the operation netted nearly $1 million in a year. The DA says the sex workers were required to have unprotected sex, forced to stay overnight, and to work long hours.
What the operation did was they recruited women, mostly or all of Chinese descent, and they used social media. They recruited these women and they put them to work in terrible conditions. They advertised to men in Suffolk County, utilizing websites.
All 4 defendants were arraigned today, each of them pleading not guilty. In court, the prosecutor said over the course of the investigation, Yu exploited more than 24 women. She allegedly had plans to head to China next week.
These locations, these massage parlors, are often a community problem. They're a blight in our community. They cause all sorts of secondary effects in our community, and shutting them down certainly is a victory for the residents of Suffolk County.
Cecilia Dowd for Newsday.
Okay, so y'all just heard that audio right there. And shout out to First Them News for actually tagging me in the story about this. Now, this story is not going to get much traction at all, although it should. And many stories of its caliber definitely should. There are plenty of stories out there where you have these makeshift massage parlors that turn out to be inside brothels. And these women right here had 2 of them. And they said they netted nearly $1 million within a year, which means they were doing this even while the woo-woo was going on. They had to have. They didn't specify the timeline, but the fact that they got them now, they most likely were still operating through all of this. They probably would have made more if it wasn't for the woo-woo too, because that probably put a dent in their business a little bit. So you had, and the ringleader was this woman right here, the one in the black. She was the ringleader, and these were her little underlings, the other ones right here. But this, like I said, does not get talked about a lot. Remember when Robert Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots, had went down to Florida and he went to one of these parlors to get his happy ending? This is basically the same exact thing here. And they don't talk about this enough in the media. But when they want to bring up the topic of xenophobia and, anti-racism towards the Asian community, they'll talk about that, but they won't talk about this, or how these women basically held other Chinese, they said, like the DA said, other women of Chinese descent, basically as sex slaves to basically cater and nourish, quote unquote, these men. But they don't talk about that. But they get mad when someone calls the woo-woo the Chinese flu, or as 45 says, the Kung flu. They get mad about that, but they won't talk about this. Meanwhile, you had Letitia, what's her name? James, create some kind of a hotline for the Asian community if they are facing discrimination. But they don't want to talk about this. And mind you, they said this happened in Suffolk County. And I want to say that this was in New York. I want to say that this happened in New York. Yes, it happened in New York. Suffolk County in New York. They said that the ringleader is charged with enterprise corruption, second and third degree money laundering, and fourth and fifth degree conspiracy. And both of them are, one is from Manhattan and one is from Flushing. Let me see if there's anything else. Another is from Brooklyn. So they're pretty much from, from New York. And this is what they involve themselves in. But this happens so often, but it doesn't get news traction. I wonder how long this is going to stay in the news. I'm curious. And I also need to know from my New York subscribers, before I did a video on this, did you hear about this story? I'm going to go out on a limb and say many of you are going to say no. And I'm fine with that because I didn't expect you to know about this. They're going to keep this under wraps. They basically took women and made them sex slaves to these random men to make money and masked it as if they were running a massage parlor. And like I said, this happens so often in the establishment. And I wonder, were they born here or did they migrate here? Within the last, I don't know how many years. But they want us to feel bad for them in what's going on with the woo-woo, even though that did come from China, the same place where most of them migrated from. They ain't going to talk about this, though, but whenever they want to talk about racism and everything that's coming towards them, then they want to talk about it. Remember, this happened. This is going on in the same state where that Peter Liang shot and killed Akai Gurley, and you had a vast majority of the Asian community, no matter from what walk of life within Asia they came from, come out in protest and say that Peter Liang was innocent for killing Akai Gurley. And right when he was dead close to getting sentenced, you had that buck dancing, now deceased Sambo. I forget his name, but at this point it doesn't matter. We'll just stick with now deceased buck dancing Sambo come out and reverse what they had on the table. Even though Peter Liang was pretty much guilty, they was getting ready to throw him in jail, which would have been interesting considering cops, when it comes to killing black people, rarely get sentenced to anything. But now he's gone because, he ended up dying from cancer or something like that. He thought he was out, literally on his way out, and now he's gone. So he did all that buck dancing for nothing. He could have died with some dignity. Instead, he died a fool. But yeah, back to this. This doesn't surprise me. Like I said, there's so many more of these brothel ran on the inside, looking like a parlor on the outside operations that are in America right now as we speak. Like I remember they teased it a little bit in that movie Rush Hour 2. Remember when Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker had went to that massage parlor, but it was really a brothel, so to speak. But that was for entertainment purposes. But back then when I was younger, I didn't understand that. So I just, laughed at it and was like, oh, okay. But fast forward to now, I see those kinds of operations popping up all over the place. That's how they do it. And it's always usually at these Asian ran massage parlors or nail salons or anything like that. That's usually where they occur at. And they were using their own women within their own lineage to do it. I wonder, is the Asian community going to come out and say anything about this? Probably not. At least not in a collective like they should, or to the point where it should be a cause for concern. But y'all let me know down in the comments what y'all think about this story, and I'll talk to you in the next one.